Hello again, and welcome back to my Jumpers to Follow mini-series on the Final Flight podcast. My name is James Woods. Welcome back to another episode 6 now. Well, we managed to get through 6 episodes. So it's fantastic as we build up towards the new season. So yeah, thank you for everyone who's enjoyed the series so far. I've had some messages and comments and things like that, so I'm glad everyone's enjoying it. I'm certainly enjoying it, and it's getting the juices flowing, ready for the new season. And I personally cannot wait for it to kick off in a couple of weeks. Not even that. We've got 2 episodes left after this one. They're going to be 2 sort of specials. I'm going to bring the lads in, Joe and Rich. I'm going to look at the open graded hurdlers and chasers and just talk about all round all the horses we're looking forward to, whether it's Constitution Hill or a handicapper that no one's ever heard of. We're going to enjoy talking about them. So those will be the next 2 episodes. But like I say, we're going to roll on with the novices. I'm going to stick with what I've been doing lately, the 4 novice hurdlers to kick us off, and then 3 novice chasers, followed by a couple of point-to-point recruits. And we're going to keep going through that format. Just a quick note, obviously, the podcast is going really well. I'm really enjoying it. So the lads, the subscribers are coming through. So thank you very much for everyone who's subscribed so far and hitting the like button and things like that. We do appreciate it. And we're just going to keep doing what we do, keep doing what we're enjoying, and that's talking about the racing. And obviously the jumps racing to come. And on a small note, obviously I've started my Patreon group. That is £5 a month. So if you want to join that, just hit the link in my bio on my Twitter. There's also a link in the bio on the channel. You can hit that if you want to support my jumps racing content. I put out daily selections, big festival blogs, big weekend blogs, that sort of thing. Loads of stuff on there, tracker updates. And like I say, it's only £5 a month. So if you'd like to support that, I do appreciate it. We had another winner today with Elefante. Sorry for Lucinda Russell winning. She looks a really nice mare over at Perth, so that was a nice winner on the board once again. And the profit's doing well. So if you want to spot that, that's where them links are. Right. So without further ado, I'm going to get straight into it, and we'll crack on with episode 6, Jumpers to Follow. So the first one I'm going to speak about is a novice hurdler that I'm really looking forward to, and it's a horse called Favour and Fortune. Now this is a Alan King trained gelding. 5-year-old, and obviously as you can see there, the form book reads 1-1 and 0. Now I'll talk about the 0 in a minute, but I quite like this horse coming over from bumpers into the hurdling division, and he won his first bumper over at Southwell. It was one of the strongest of races, but he won it quite easily. So I'm really excited to see how I'm going to get on, because he kicked on from that and won his next bumper at Warwick. Again, it looked like a deeper race, this time on slightly better ground. And believe it or not, he did look a little bit keen that day, but he travelled really well and pushed himself out and went on to win by about 7 lengths. And I thought that was an impressive performance, obviously on the slightly better ground, so that clearly suited him. It then goes on to we'll get on to the 0 now. He took his chance in the champion bumper at Cheltenham, and we all know what sort of race that's going to turn out to be. I do think it'll be quite a strong one this time round. There'll be quite a few winners come out of that, but the ground just went a little bit worse than soft, I'd say. And obviously Dream to Share and Factor File went on and won that race. So this guy come 14th out of 21. And I'll just put a line through it, really. The champion bumper's not for everyone, but I do think this is the sort of horse for Alan King who could pick up some of those nice early season novice hurdles on his debut and things like that. And we might get a backable price, we shall see. But I definitely think it's one to keep in the tracker and follow as the season goes on. I do think he'll pick up some of those early races just before the ground gets a little bit too testing, although we are due a storm this week, so we don't really know what sort of forecast we're going to get over the coming months. But sort of looking back on the past, and he'll get a few of those early season novice hurdles in the bank, I would think, for Alan King. That's Favour and Fortune to kick us off. Fantastic. Right, so the next one I'm going to speak about is one for Nicky Henderson. Now, this is a horse I really, really do like. And it's called South of the Border. Now, I mentioned this in one of my trackered updates on the Patreon, but I think he's going to be a good horse. Is this now? It looks a real talent from his point to point. It was a 3-mile point to point on soft, and he won it really cosily. It's a really nice performance. If you go back and watch that in November 22, it was, it sort of travelled all over him, jumped really well and kicked on and enjoyed the soft ground and won quite convincingly in the well. So, he stays really well. They weren't missed in the sales. He went for 145k. So, obviously there's it comes with a big price tag, as we all well know. And sometimes they don't always kick on. There was a horse earlier in the week called, I can't know if you can pronounce it, but it was Jet Kong Enki. I actually put him in my Patreon. I thought he was going to go and win. He come with a big reputation, but he just sort of travelled well and blew up in the end. But looking at south of the border, I think he could be one to book that trend, hopefully, and kick on for a decent season. And he made his Rose debut at Foss Last. Now, Nicky Henderson doesn't always send his best to Foss Last, but I do believe the ownership of this horse is Welsh owned. So I do think it was a little bit more making it easier for the the owner to go and watch the horse make his debut. Now, if you go back and watch the race, he took him along and he was in command the whole time, and he just sort of kicked on and put the race to head and was kept up to his work, really. A good couple of taps down the neck and off he went, and he took off. And I just think it looked like a really nice performance. And obviously, it goes well on the soft ground. So, and he still looked quite green. And I think this is the type of lad to kick on and do quite well. Obviously, he's not in the biggest ownership colours. But I do think for keeping out on those early season races and see how he progresses over hurdles, I definitely think south of the border is going to be one to keep on side 100% for Nicky Henderson. And he does have a lot of good young horses coming through. There's old Nicky this season, and I'm really in him and Nichols. I'm looking to jump on board with these two. They do like to pick up these early races early on. We've had a few nice winners so far from these two. The same with Skelton and things like that. They like to pick up these early races and get their horses out early. And I'm really looking forward to south of the border and seeing how he can get on over hurdles. Lovely. Right, so my next one is going to be a Ollie Murphy trained horse. Now, this one in the same colours as Rare Edition, Chasing Fire, things like that. Act of Authority. Now, I'm really looking forward to this horse again. He's not a winner. He's got a form of 2 and 2 there in his bumpers. And I kind of watched the bumpers back. And to be fair, he's come up against a couple of really nice types, and I'll speak about them in a second. But it's an horse by Authorised. Now, he won his point-to-point on good yielding ground. So, he knows probably likes decent-ish ground, won't want it too soft. And obviously, he come up in his bumper, his early season bumper. He come up against a horse called Florida Dreams, who looks quite a nice horse, I thought. And on the soft ground, he just couldn't quite go with the winner there. But he comes second, and I thought it was a decent run. And like I say, Florida Dreams on to win the Great Bumper entry if you look through that form as well. So that form's been franked, so it's definitely a good running behind him, I would have thought. And he come up in his second bumper at Taunton. This time he come up against a horse called Secret Squirrel. Now, we did have to give him plenty of weight that day. And I just think he got a little bit done for toe. I think he was a little bit speedy with Secret Squirrel for him. And he just sort of come up short, and he only went down. He went down about 4 lengths, but I just thought he was a bit speedy. I think he probably wants to step up in trip, does Act of Authority. So I'm not sure. He might have his debut over 2 mile, but I do think a step up in trip on sort of good to soft ground probably about his where he want to be aiming him. But I just think sometimes, you can look at these flashy winners, but they don't always kick on. And sometimes you want to find these horses in second in some of these bumpers, and they go on and they do all right. So I do think Act of Authority is going to be a nice one for Ollie Murphy. Obviously, he's a really good trainer, got some really nice horses, and they do seem to dominate at certain tracks around the UK. Obviously, they don't always go on to be Grade 1 winners and Cheltenham Festival winners and things like that. If you can pick up some of these early races or the races through the season at the smaller tracks, especially up north and things like that, I think they like to do that. The likes of Rare Edition, Chasing Fire, he does that with that, and obviously they bombed out at Cheltenham. But if Act of Authority can win two or three races and be unbeaten going in, I'll be happy with that, because it means we've done quite well for them throughout the season, and that's what it's all about. It's not always about the big festivals, although we do love them. It's always good to try and find a few winners along the way. Fantastic. So yeah, Act of Authority. I think he'll kick on now over hurdles, and go under the radar, as I like to always say. Right, so my last novice hurdler for this one is going to be a mare. This one's called Queen Annie. And this is a mare going to be it's trained by Harry Fry. And, well, we know I love a good mare, so I'm going to add this one in here because I really like her. And she's sort of impressed me over her sort of form over her runs now. She's got form there of 5-2, 4-1 in her bumpers. And if you sort of go through... she performed quite well in her point-to-points. Well, the first two on there, the 5 and 2 were her point-to-points. I put the point-to-point form on there, so I think it's quite important sometimes. And she performed quite well. Irish point to points were always hard for mares, I believe, to come through that route. But she came through and she did okay. And she made a debut in a conditions hurdle. Apologies. She made a debut at Toxicity on heavy ground. Tell you what, my voice is a bit funny today. And she come forth. It was heavy ground. I don't quite think she enjoyed the conditions. It was heavy going, and it just one of those things. But the race that caught my eye was obviously the race back in March, where she come up into a bumper at Chepstow. I thought it was a really good run. She looked quite keen. She looked quite green. She was sort of jostling position, and she sort of kicked on quite late. Well, quite on for home, and I thought, well, she's never going to get home, and she ends up idling quite badly. And sort of the second horse comes up alongside her. Now, it was from this point that kind of impressed me. As soon as the horse come up alongside her, she goes again, and she looks to kick on again and battle away. Now, I love that sort of aspect, or that sort of part of the horse where if she can battle on, I think she's going to do well. And she obviously handled the ground that day. Soft ground, 2 mile. I think she probably will stay further, but I think they'll probably kick her off at 2 mile. But she just looked like she could battle, and if she's in a race with horses around her, she didn't look phased, and she was able to go again and find that second gear to end up winning the race and just sort of holding on. But if she hadn't have idled and all that, she'd have won by a mile. So it's one of them where I'd mark the race up definitely, and I think she can go on and do really well. Now, I'm not saying she's going to go win a Mares Novice Hurdle. Absolutely not, but she could be an outside chance. One of them, you try and get ones that go under the radar a little bit. Obviously, Willie Mullins and those sort of players are going to have mares all over the place coming out as the season goes along. But I think this one for Harry Fry, she could be a little bit special. I think she could be decent. Now she's getting her act together. I think over hurdles and a little bit of a step up in trip. And if we can knock that keenness out of it, I think they'll do pretty well. I think she'll do pretty well. So that's Queen Annie for Harry Fry. Lovely. Right, so I'm going to move on now to my novice chasers, and I've got 3 to finish off the novice chasers, sorry. And the first one I'm going to talk about in this final novice chasing section is going to be Stay Away Fair for Nichols. Now, obviously, the Albert Bartlett winner has to get a mention, because I think the Albert Bartlett has been a decent race over the last couple of years. You've got some nice types that have come out of it over the years, the Monkfishes, your Time Hills, those sort of horses. And I do think the same thing's going to be for this season. And I think Stay Away Fair is going to be the one to hopefully kick on. We know how well Nichols does with these hurdlers once they go chasing. It's the old saying, looks a chaser or a chaser for the future type thing. And I think Stay Away Fair could be just that. Personally, I think you're going to go Brown Advisory. I think he'll be in there, definitely pitching away. Unless I've missed something where they're staying over, it'll be quite funny because it's happened a couple of times already. But yeah, I think... if you go back through the season last season, won his point to point early on, over 3 mile before we had wind surgery, and then we didn't see him for a year. But he made his reappearance. No messing about, straight over novice hurdles, and he went on strongly to win his first race. He was beaten on his second run by a horse called Maximilian, who was obviously a decent horse in the end. But I do think if you go back through, he sort of won his next race, which obviously pitched in straight into the Albert Bartlett. And he just never saw a rival. I thought he was up with the pace the whole time, and he kicked on, stayed on strongly, and just looked like an exceptional performance for me, especially to do that off the back of a second place. But I thought the good ground when he got beat probably didn't suit, and back on soft ground at Cheltenham, I think it suited him down to ground. It was a real stamina test. I think that's what this guy needs. Obviously, he didn't back it up at Cheltenham. He didn't back it up at Aintree when Apple away won that race there. But, I'd never hold Aintree against a horse. If a horse goes and wins at Cheltenham, they do a hell of a job to go back it up at an Aintree or even a Punchestown. Them sort of meetings always throw out some sort of funny results here or there. And, you get horses that didn't go to Cheltenham that go straight to Aintree and they beat Cheltenham winners. And we're all sort of thinking, well, is the form worth anything? But I don't think it is half the time. Sometimes it might be, but if the form's reversed, potentially. But I think in this sense, we could probably put a line through that run. It was still a good run, he's still come forth and run a decent race. But I just think he'll kick on now as a 6-year-old turning 7. He'll go be a novice chaser and have a good crack over the bigger obstacles. And I'm thinking he's definitely a Brown Advisory type. Whether he wins it's another question, but we shall see. Lovely. Right, 2 more. I'm going to talk about. The next one I'm going to talk about is one that I think is definitely going to go under the radar. My favourite scene, and it's another one for Nichols, and it's a horse called Golden Sun. Now I found this horse looking through a few notes that I made previously, and it's actually a French recruit. Is this horse, and it's coming over to Nichols after a juvenile season over in France, where he's obviously run over hurdles and over fences. And he comes with a bit of decent form. He's run sort of 9 times over the space of 12 months over in France, and he's run to a good level. You know, he's a Grade 2 winner over hurdles, and he's run on very soft ground, that sort of thing. So he looks like a good horse over the sort of 2 mile 2 trip. So he looks like a little bit of a stayer. I'm not sure where his sort of Cheltenham target would be, maybe a handicap potentially, something like that. But I think he's going to be a good horse over fences. I'm interested to see if he could pop up in a novice chase somewhere and potentially kick on and be a nice type for Nichols. Obviously, he's got all that experience from France, so it's sort of handy for Nichols to take that on board and come over to his training regime and see what he can do and see if he takes to it over in the UK. Obviously, it could be a dud, but he could go on and do quite well. I'm not saying he's going to be a festival winner, but he could definitely pick up some races in these sort of smaller fields where he'll be able to dominate and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's just one I thought I'd throw in there. Golden Sun, I quite like the look of this one, in the same colours as the likes of Dolos, that sort of thing. So yeah, I really like these. I really like the Nichols horses. I like it when they go chasing. When he picks up a nice recruit and takes them chasing, I think they always tend to do pretty well. And fingers crossed, Golden Sun can be one of them. Lovely. Right, so my last novice chaser. Now, I did have another novice chaser in mind, but this one seems to be cropping up all over social media. So I thought I'd give him a little bit of a mention, and we'll talk about him for a few minutes and see what our thoughts are on this horse. And it's a horse called Mr. Policeman. Now, this is a horse that's got a hell of a reputation behind him. There's a lot of people touting him for the big festivals, things like that, for Rich Ritchie and Willie Mullins. And he's a 5-year-old gal, and it does look a pretty decent horse now. I've kind of looked into this a little bit. He had a couple of good runs over in France. One where he come fourth behind a horse called Ivaldi, who was a decent little horse for Nichols. And he bolted up at the same place. It was Fontainebleau. Same conditions, same trip, very soft, 2 mile 2. Staying on strongly, tanked away and won that next time out. He's then come over to the UK, and he's going to be under the trainage of Willie Mullins now. Obviously, we know how well Willie Mullins does with these French imports, but it'll be interesting to see how this one goes on now. He made his debut at Cork, where he beat a couple of nice horses. Cashback was in there, things like that, and he put them away quite cosily, to be honest. He had Michael O'Sullivan on board. Michael O'Sullivan on board, although he was claiming 5 that day, it was still a decent performance. His first run in the UK, and it just seems like they're wasting no time. And he seems to be a chaser in the making. Obviously, he's had 1 hurdle run, so it looks like they are going to go straight chasing with him. Now, the whole argument, I suppose, that I'm seeing on social media is a lot of people saying he's an out-and-out 2-miler, Arkle horse. Definitely, and he's already been cut. I think he was as big as 20s in places. He's now looking at 16 to 1, 12 to 1. Obviously, it's not a bad each way price when you look at the markets with the sort of likes of Marine Nationale in there, Facile Vega, and things like that. But I think Willie Mullins is probably going to have a bit of a dilemma in his hands which way these two are going to go. Now, I do think you look at Facile Vega. If Mr. Policeman is going to be the horse that they think he may be, does that push Facile Vega to the turners potentially? But I'm not 100% convinced that Mr. Policeman, based on his French form, over 2 mile 2 and very soft, he looks like a bit more of a stayer. So you would have thought that either Mr. Policeman or Facile Vega could probably both step up in trip to the 2 mile 4 turners trip over fences. So I do think you'll see Facile Vega start over 2 mile, and this guy will probably start over 2 mile as well. And I think it'll be a case of see how they both go. And obviously, I don't think he's not going to be worried about Marine Nationale. Obviously, he looks a superstar, but as do they all. So it'll be a case of let's just see how they get on. But I won't be so sure that he's going to be a full, definitely, pile in for the Arkle. But we'll have to definitely wait and see how they get on. Because I think Mr. Policeman, either could probably go turners and either could go Arkle. That's Willie Mullins bingo. We're going to look forward to a full season of it. Oh, absolutely can't wait for all this Mullins bingo. It's great. It's got so much firepower. But I do think the likes of Henderson and Nichols, they've got a little bit more firepower behind them this season coming up. A lot of young horses have spent a lot of good money in the sales, and they're pulling a few more recruits through. So fingers crossed the UK boys can give it up to the Irish when it comes to the big festivals this year. I know the Presbyterian Cup gets mentioned a lot, and it's not really no point mentioning it, but fingers crossed we can have a bit of a dig this year. Take a few nice races off them. Right, so that's Mr. Policeman, and that's it for the novice chasers. I'm going to move on now to my last two point-to-point recruits that I'm going to mention. And a couple of people have mentioned, one of these already, definitely. And I'm going to kick us off with a horse called Qualimeter. Obviously, it's the most expensive mare bought at the sales, I think, ever. At 500,000 euros. So it's obviously a lot of money. This filly's got decent point-to-point, obviously one point-to-point. Brought the Punchestown sales record. And it's gone to Rob Corr, and it's going to be trained by Gordon Elliott. She won a point-to-point with considerable ease by, an easy, comfortable 30 lengths. Like this is like a real taking performance. If you go back and watch it, you look and think, well, she's literally racing against nothing, but she's obviously bolted up and battered them, and looked really classy. Now, obviously, Gordon Elliott's got her, so she's probably going to be taken along slowly. Whether they'll go bumpers or straight over hurdles, or they'll just take a time with her. Normally with mares, you'd like to get them out quite quick. So I can see if she'd probably go over hurdles potentially early on. She's then going to go on, going to go on for like a breeding type thing, or if they're going to try and do like a honeysuckle style with her and get as much racing out of her as they can, we shall see. But Gordon does tend to bring horses along quite slowly. But when you get one that's £500,000, he's probably going to handle it a little bit tentatively, potentially. So we shall see how that one goes. But like I say, if you watch the point-to-point, she just flies away. So if she's got a big reputation to uphold as she comes into the season, whichever way she goes, and there's going to be a lot, she'll definitely be like a short price on a debut. It'll be one of them where she'll either blow out or she'll be a superstar. So we shall see. But Rob Corr seems to have a few nice horses this season coming up. But I think Quamilta is definitely going to be an interesting recruit as the season goes on. And so the last one I'm going to speak about is a horse called DB Cooper. Now, I'm not quite sure where this horse is going to end up, but again, one of his point-to-point was a £225,000 sale back in this April, and it's just going to get away. And the point-to-point again, just another nice taking performance. Now, obviously, we've seen over the last few weeks that some of these point-to-point winners don't necessarily kick on. They're not really bumper horses, really. They're looking for further down the line. And there's a lot of argument out there where, if you're buying point-to-point recruits, should you really be wasting a season over bumpers? I know a lot of trainers tend to do it, but you'd like to think that these sort of 4 or 5-year-olds are coming from point-to-points. They should really be ready to go over hurdles or, things like that. So after the time they get, do a year in the bumpers and they see how they get on. But yeah, if you go back and watch the point-to-point, the horse drew about 30 lengths clear with the second and kicked on and stayed on really well. So, I think the horse looks really good. It's got a big future. DB Cooper, I quite like this one. I'm interested to see if anybody knows where the horse has gone, which trainer, which owner, that sort of thing. If you do know, let me know in the comments on Twitter, and I'll have a closer look. But the horse is in the tracker, so we'll see where these horses pop up. Like I say, the point-to-point recruits, 9 times out of 10, we don't see them for 12, 18 months. So if they come out in bumpers and things like that, there could be a short price, blah, blah, blah. But it's always worth keeping them in and just keeping an eye on them and seeing how they get on, because if they do turn out quite well, it's always good to be on them early doors, because sometimes you can get a decent price when you're putting your bets on. Lovely. Right, that's it. That's it for another episode. That's episode 6. Jumpers to follow. So thank you very much for listening. Like I say, the next 2 episodes are going to be specials. I'm going to bring the lads back in, Joe and Rich. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about the open graded hurdlers. We're going to talk about the open graded chasers. It's just going to be an all-out talk about some of the big names, some of the horses coming through, who we think is going to win what, just kind of an overview of the season, really. We'll talk about some of the big races and some of the big horses, and just have a real good general chat about where we think who's going to go where and what's going to win what. I think it's been a really good couple of episodes, so fingers crossed you all tune into that. And like I say, sign up to the Patreon if you want to support the content. I do appreciate it. I'm open to keep putting out really good quality stuff. Jump season's my thing, so it's really going to start rocking on now. At the weekend, well, next week, I did say the weekend, but I think next week I'm going to sort of be announcing the sort of format for the podcast, how the show's going to go, what sort of episodes we're going to do, that sort of thing. And it's all really good stuff to look forward to, really, so I cannot wait for it all to kick off. Like I say, Punchestown and Chepstow will kick us off, and we can't wait for that. So, yeah, fingers crossed. it'll come quick. Right, so I'm just going to start rambling now. So thank you all for watching. I do appreciate it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, the one below Woodsy92, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Leave a comment. If there's any horses you like that I spoke about, let me know your opinion. Let me know any horses you're looking forward to. And don't forget to comment on Twitter as well. And we'll just keep cracking on with this jump season to come. So yeah, thank you very much. And I will see you next week. Thank you.